Hi, this is Jay Washburn.
And I'm Joe Bondowski.
And this is Start Writing.
And this what is this episode about? This episode is about little did they know clauses. So, and as you know, Bob. So we will talk about these two types of clauses, why they're used and when. But first we have This Week in Critiques. I guess if those of you who heard Tim's interview, you'll know that this is his book. And I actually have more writing truths that came out of it than critiques, but this was one specific critique that I did want to make on the book. So he had this line in here. He's describing a scene. In the center of the dance, a woman whirled in a violet gown with a shirt riding high on her thighs and trailing a strand of golden cloth flowing from her hair. So my critique here is that we're getting a description of the woman and the shirt and that she's wearing, and then he's the shirt riding high on her thighs and trailing a strand of golden cloth. So immediately you think that's attached to the shirt, but then he says, comma, flowing from her hair. So mentally, as you're building this image, it's like getting jerked, right? Yeah. You hit this, be like, oh wait, that doesn't go there at all. It goes to her hair. So it's basically, this is comma acrobatics that we've talked about. He's used comma acrobatics here, and it's making that image not work the way he wants it to. My thought is it should have just been cut into two sentences, right? We get the shirt riding high on her thighs, period, from her hair, a golden strand, trailed. And then there's no confusion on that image. You don't get that. Wait, this doesn't fit, right? Because it's confusing.
Yeah, I like that.
So that was my one critique in that I wanted to point out there, just because we do it sometimes. I feel like Tim is a very good writer, and he just in that line he tried to do acrobatics and it didn't work. So. All right, Jay has our writing true.
Okay, this is from Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I just wanted to read two passages that I thought were beautiful. This guy writes very poetically, and I got to be honest, sometimes it's abstract enough that I feel a little lost. But sometimes it's just like so incredible. Anyway, I want to point out a couple things that when I read them, I was like, dang, I wish I could write this kind of stuff. Anyway, okay, so let's see. There's a character searching through an office, going through this journal, and the narrator notices these extra written pages that are tucked in the journal, right? And so the narrator says that these are shoved roughly between pages, less like bookmarks and more as if she had become irritated with them and was punishing the very words she had scribbled down. So there's the narrator's just seeing the journal sitting there, and he kind of creates this story in his head of, she's angry at the words and she's shoving these extra pages in there. And there's just this story that grows out of just observing that image, which I thought was sweet. Here's another one that I just thought was really well described. The sentence is, he was screaming, but from somewhere far beneath the sea. And that just, far beneath the sea, you get this image of drowning and a muffled scream, right? Like it's suppressed and buried. It's just, I don't know. When I read that, I was like, wow, a scream from far beneath the sea. It's just that's writing true right there.
Oh, good. Yeah. I'm going to have to check out this book, man.
Yeah, it's cool. So, man, I'm a little anxious about the third one because I feel like this happens for me a lot where I love the questions that are asked, and it's sometimes the questions are so good that you get disappointed when you get the answers. And I'm a little worried about that. I haven't read the third book yet.
Did you finish The Expanse, or at least as far as they are into it?
No.
Okay.
Crap.
No, I was not disappointed in it.
Oh, okay.
So, but they're 6 books in, and there's still not a lot of answers going on.
Okay. Dang. Well, and that can be super fun. The first book of that I just loved because they asked some really cool questions. But yeah, the answers.
So so I remember way back when you mentioned you were really excited to see it on Sci-Fi because you wanted to see what it looked like, and then they didn't even finish the first book in season 1. Season 2 is now on Prime, and you can check it out and see it now.
I haven't watched
now
it.
You can see it. So.
Yeah, man, and sometimes like the prose can really make it come alive in your imagination, but sometimes like motion picture, you just like whoa, like Anyway, it comes alive in another way.
I think Lord of the Rings really illustrates that. Right?
Yeah.
You can read the books, but seeing the movies is just something else.
Yeah.
Like the vistas that Jackson presents are just incredible.
Man, and people always say, did you like the book or the movie better? And I've actually found a couple books where I think the movie is better. Like The Prestige, for example. The Prestige, the movie is awesome, and the book has some interesting concepts, but it's not a masterpiece in the same way.
Yeah.
But anyway, when people say that, I always think, you know what? I like them together. A lot of movies, like The Book Thief, I loved The Book Thief, but I felt like getting those extra visuals with the movie. Anyway, I love combining a book and a movie. I'm kind of weird
because there were a few times. So I read The Martian after the movie had come out, but I didn't see the movie first, but it was out. And I remember there were several passages where it's like, I want to see that on the screen. Yeah. Like where he's describing the Martian scenery and, some of the big views as he stands on some of these hilltops to look at things. Like, I want to see that in the theater. Like, so kind of see what you're saying there.
Well, okay. So, let's say The Martian, for example, we have 100% of a story, right? The book tells 70% of the story. And what it's missing is all the visuals, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that the movie tells maybe, let's say, 50% of the story, right? All the visuals and some of the stuff from the book, but not all that was in the book. All of it, But you combine those together and you're just like, whoa, this is an awesome story.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I never thought of it that way.
That's the way I think of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, though. Yeah, like together, you get this whole thing.
Yeah. But that said, I usually prefer to read the book first.
Yeah.
I feel like that story combination comes together usually better
that way.
When you do book first.
Well, because I guess it's easy to sit back for an hour and a half and see a movie of which you know the story. But to read a book for 10 hours that you know the story, that's a little tougher.
It's difficult.
Yeah. So, okay. Let's actually get to our discussion now that we're done talking about just stories we like. So we're going to start off with an anecdote. So Little Did They Know. So this is called a Little Did They Know. This actually came out of the 20 books, 20 books to 50K group. So somebody had mentioned that they had this phrase in their book and their editor had told them to cut it out. So I explained the concept to them and why it is and what it is and the ups and downs of it. But I thought, out of that, there was a lot of information there. I was like, well, that's enough. We could probably do a podcast and maybe other people are wondering about this. So we're going to start off with a clip from Stranger Than Fiction. In the newsletter, I'll put the clip to the video. But as we are just an audio program, you'll only hear the audio here, of course. So this is from Stranger Than Fiction. And Will Ferrell character has heard this narrator's voice talking about him doing things.
So in movies, you hear a narrator narrating as the character walks around. In this movie, the character can hear that voice.
Yeah, he can hear the narrator.
And it's freaking him out.
So he goes to see a professor of literature. And the initial part of the conversation is he's saying, I can't help you. You're crazy. This isn't a literature issue. And then his character says what the narrator has been saying, and that's what catches his attention. And that's the clip we're going to play for you right now. So this is Dustin Hoffman and Will Ferrell talking about the voice that he's hearing. And here's the clip.
I could barely remember it all. I just remember little did he know that this simple, seemingly innocuous act would lead to his imminent death.
What?
Little did he know that
Did you say little did he know?
Yes.
I've written papers on little did he know. I used to teach a class based on little did he know. I mean, I once gave an entire seminar on little did he know. Son of a bitch, Harold. Little did he know means there's something he doesn't know. That means there's something you don't know. Do you know that? I want you to come back
Okay.
Friday.
Okay.
All right. So there's one thing that Dustin Hoffman says here that I do want to point out, and he says, "Little did he know" means that there is something that he doesn't know. That means there's something you don't know. And so there is occasionally debates about this, because the phrase, if you look at it specifically, particularly if you haven't grown up with this phrase, "little did he know" sounds like it means he knows something, and it's a little bit about something, but it actually means he doesn't know. And so that's one of the things Hoffman's character says in there. He says it means there's something you don't know. The character doesn't know. And so what it is essentially creating in a single sentence a moment of dramatic irony. You're telling me the character does not know this. I'm telling you, now you the reader know it, and that creates that dramatic irony. So let's talk about where it comes from and why it is. So in the history, the first time we kind of see it is in the 1800s, and it starts off initially as part of dialogue, right? So we have a character who says this, and this is from Arthur Conan Doyle's The Brigadier Gerard. "Little did they know I was on the very mound," right? He's narrating his own experience about other people. They didn't know I was there, right? So that's the first time we really see it. Unbeknownst, its cousin shows up at the beginning of the 20th century, but little did they know, little did he know, little did she know. This phrase really begins to become popular between the 1930s and 1950s in adventure magazines for men. So these kind of Indiana Jones adventure type magazines, stories,
Wow.
That's where it first begins to pop. And it gets adapted by, at the time they're just called mystery writers, but now we would call them cozy mystery writers, right? Most famous of them, of course, is Agatha Christie.
Wait, so what does the term cozy mean?
It's just a type of mystery.
But why that?
I don't know specifically why they call it a cozy mystery, but they do. I guess because they're not really dark, right? People die, there are murders, but there's not a big emphasis on the darker grittiness of that. I think might be why they call it a cozy mystery. It gets picked up by these cozy mystery writers that are booming at the same time, right? The 1930s to the 1950s, and even a little bit after. And then it goes out of fashion, and here's why it goes out of style. Oftentimes, these are not written in the POV that the chapter is written in, right? When they say, if you're going through the chapter in this character's head, and then suddenly you say, "little did he know," well, that's no longer that character's perspective. That's the author telling the reader something.
Man, this is so funny that you chose this topic. I had one of these in my novel, and I
really?
just deleted it because of that problem you just described.
Yeah.
Where I felt like, dang, this is me becoming a narrator and taking away that the flashlight from
the camera. You
character.
took the camera away
Yeah.
from it's no longer on the
which
shoulder.
is well, yeah, we'll get to it. But
Okay.
it seemed like a shame. I was like, dang, I kind of want to foreshadow.
So essentially what it is it's foreshadowing without a lot of work. Instead of putting in all the details throughout the chapter, or maybe writing a chapter from a different character's viewpoint, you just put in this one sentence, "little did he know," and then go on. So it's a shortcut to effective foreshadowing, right? And a lot of readers don't like it. Some even mentioned that Dan Brown does it a lot. He actually doesn't. He stays in POV, and these are predictions by the character, as opposed to actual little did he knows. It's not an author or an omniscient voice filling that in. It's a character making predictions about future events. So he actually doesn't do this. And it's telling, right? Plain and simple, as opposed to showing. And it takes information out of the chronological order, right? Little did he know, if a story is being told in past tense, we follow it chronologically, occasionally skipping forward through dull moments, but chronologically. But now you're taking this information from somewhere in the future where this person would learn it and injecting it into into this chapter here. Why it's done? One of the big reasons is because writers in the past have done it. Two is sometimes there might be a lack of clarity on the foreshadowing, and that will clear it up really easily. By telling instead of showing, you don't confuse a reader. It's easy to follow. the style has also continued because it's nostalgic for readers of cozy mysteries, right? Most of them cut their teeth on Agatha Christie and writers from her time. That's where they started reading these kind of stories, fell in love with them, and that was iconic of the genre. They're used to it. They kind of expect it. They kind of want it. I make the comparison. The latest Final Fantasy game came out a year ago, 2 years ago. I saw my friend playing it, and I asked him, "Where's your mage?" And he's like, "I don't have a mage." I was like, "You don't have magic?" He's like, "No magic." I was like, "How can you even call the game a fantasy at this point if you don't have magic?" And at that moment, I mean, they do have like little magic affecting their swords and stuff, but they don't have like all kinds of mages casting spells and stuff. And at that moment, I was like, I do not want to play the game ever. Like, my reason for playing Final Fantasy is to go into a fantasy world where we have fantasy elements. Yeah. And fantasy elements are threefold. Swords, magic, and dragons. You don't have those three, you don't have a fantasy. Right? Now, you don't have to interact with the dragons, but they have to be part of the world, right? You know? And I was like, you took out one of the three pillars of fantasy as you've advanced your world. I have no interest. Nice. You know, there's lots of other people making games that have magic. So I'm out. You know, and so you can kind of look at a cozy mystery that way. They like little do they know, and they want it. It's part of the storytelling for them because that's how they grew up with it.
Yeah.
You know.
So let me add one to the why it's done. And I mean, you basically already said this, but in my novel, I wanted to get the reader worrying about something that the character wasn't worrying about. So I wanted to create like this ominous presence. And I feel like the emotion would be ramped up had I done that. But yeah, again, I just felt like it wasn't authentic to the narration that I had created. It just seemed like this.
A lot of times it's not. And I feel like unless you're writing a cozy mystery, you probably shouldn't use it. But if you are writing cozy mystery, you should have at least one, maybe two, you know, because that's part of their genre now. You know, that's what the big writers have done. It's what the historical writers have done. You know, it's a part of the genre. And as much as we can poke holes in it, it's still something those readers want. You know, like Tom Clancy, you can poke all kinds of holes in his writing, but he has a group of readers who want it written that way. You know, and I think that's very much the story of Little Did They Know and the cozy mystery crowd. So here's a surprising place you can find Little Did They Know. Star Wars Return of the Jedi opening scrawl. Little does Luke know that. So
that does surprise me. And I've seen Star Wars a lot.
So there it is. There it's in Star Wars. The third one made, I guess it's episode 6.
Yeah.
Technically. So. All right. So as you know, Bob. Right. So we'll talk about this. So here's a quote from the Iliad. Why then, child, do you lament? Why sorrow has come to your heart now? Tell me. Do not hide it in your mind, and we shall both know. So that's Thetis saying that. And then you have Achilles answers, and he says, you know, since you know, why must I tell you all this? He's like, you know, I know. Why do we got to talk about it? We both know, right? This is in the Iliad. This is a really old piece of literature talking about this basic concept. When both characters know, why are they talking about it? Right? And that's what as you know, Bob. Bob, our wedding is this weekend, you know.
But we have Achilles responding, so he's lamping, right? He's saying,
lamping. Yeah.
I know that you're doing this weird thing, and it's weird.
Yeah, yeah. Thetis is doing an as you know, Bob, and Achilles is lamping him.
Nice.
So as you know, Bob is about exposition and styling for delivery. And it happens a lot when writers are trying to avoid direct exposition in the narrative, and so they slide it into dialogue. And so the problem occurs that both characters know the information. Thus, as you know, Bob, right? I know, and I'm telling you that you already know, and now I'm going to tell you the thing that we both know. Right? So as you know, Bob, we are going on vacation this weekend. Like, then, if you know and he knows, why are you talking about it? I mean, Achilles just has the perfect little friend there. He's like, why are we doing this if we already know? And usually the critique of As You Know, Bob is that the writer should find a better way to approach the exposition, because it just kind of is weird, as it's both them talking about something they already know.
Roundabout. I just have to say, if you can introduce a concept through dialogue, I think that's really good. But it just needs to be authentic.
Just
dialogue.
needs authentic, yeah. So the real explosion of As You Know, Bob comes with the explosion of television. And because television has this big explosion, there's a lot of writers who are moving from literary writing into television writing. And now they can't use a narrative for exposition. It's not an option in television. And so then you start to get a lot of these As You Know, Bobs in the late 40s and the 50s in television, as writers are trying to put in the exposition that the readers need to be able to follow the storyline. So this later, as it's critiqued, revolves into the remember redundancy. And you'll still see these, particularly when you're dealing with big series that have long storylines that go for years. Someone will say to another character, remember, and here's the piece of exposition information you need, right? As a way to slip that in. Now, it definitely still serves its purpose. Like I said, maybe like what is Walking Dead like on season 5 or 6 or something, So maybe we're dealing with something that's happening in season 5 and it relates to something that happened in season 2. It might be a good idea for the character to say, remember this thing. You need to know this, right? So it's the remember redundancy is still again, and there are variances to these. It's tell me again, let me get this straight, you know full well, right? All of these are just kind of variations of the As You Know, Bob.
I feel like I do. I already told you. I've told you.
Yeah.
Like a frustrated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like now that I say that, I need to be cautious in using that.
So, one reason to use such techniques is if you're getting feedback from beta readers that they are having a hard time following a plot or events, right? If the exposition they need to understand something, they're not getting it, then an As You Know, Bob, with a little more subtle language, might be helpful in clarifying that. You'll use a remember redundancy, or somebody remind me why we're doing this again. It's there if your beta readers are having a hard time following plot elements. So like a lot of times, like I said, it is critiqued, but it exists for a reason. It exists for clarity when you're not getting it. So ideally you want to try and write an As You Know, Bob, write your exposition and elements clearly without an As You Know, Bob. But if you're having trouble getting that done, you can still use them. And and if you do it, you'll get critiqued. But it is more important that the reader understands the story than they get agitated by one sentence of As You Know, Bob writing. So, in closing, we would love it if you leave a review for the podcast on whatever platform you listen to. That would help us out a lot. So we've talked about letting out the keywords in the newsletter. We also want to help you with your blurbs. We've done a lot of research on this. We're very comfortable writing them. And so, if you want to send us a blurb, we will rewrite it and then we'll read the two on air, the old and the new. So, if you want to send us a blurb, we will take a whack at it and see what comes out the other side.
I just want to say, we got some good cop, bad cop going on here. I hate writing blurbs, right? And the reason I bring that up is because this is a valuable help. This is super valuable. And Joe's really good at writing them and critiquing them.
So what we need, an old blurb, but also if you want to give me a little bit of a book report, that could help too. So a page or two, you don't have to be fancy or try to catch my attention. I just need to know what the book is about so I can write a blurb that actually fits the book close enough. So yeah. If you just send me the old blurb, I can do what I can, but if you send me like a 1-2 page book report, that'd be far more helpful. So if you want to send in those blurbs or book reports, let us know and we'll start cranking out some blurbs. And we are releasing the keywords So
So sign up for the newsletter if you want those. That's the only way to get them.
The only way to get them is the newsletter. And so hopefully those will be coming out on March tomorrow. March 9th. So the keywords should be available March the 9th. If you hear this after that, you should be able to go and sign up for the newsletter and get access. So, and then as we gather new keywords from new releases, new hits, we will release those keywords as well in the various genres. So next month. So each month we'll just release our updated lists for everybody there. So we're trying to cover all the major genres, and once we get those all covered, we'll dig deeper into the subgenres, and we're also gathering like general keywords just on book sales in general, because people are weird when they look for books on Amazon. You can tell by what works as book. Yeah, what the heck? How does that convert anything? But it does. People type in book, and then they buy books from it.
That's so weird.
Is that not the craziest thing you've ever heard in your life? Book. Or book.
Oh,
Yeah.
I want a book, but just not any book. I want the sort that is a book.
Yeah. So we're also creating a general keyword list just for very common words, for just anything. It's kind of a catch-all. So you'll need to really siphon it down to which of these are the most effective for you, and the email and where you find the keywords will have an explanation of some of the techniques you want to use to be able to use this list and then be able to expand and personalize it for your own use so that it really works for you. So we are all spending a lot of time gathering keywords. We decided we'd share ours with you and save you a ton of time. So you can write more. If you want to support the show, check out one of our books, leave us a review. If you email in, we will send you a copy for free in exchange for a review. And I actually have an audiobook I can send you too. So.
Oh, by the way, guys, we've been getting some cool fan mail, and it's just great to hear from you. We are reading your messages. And
Twitter, I am trying to find them. I get a lot of notifications about all kinds of stuff. So if I miss you on Twitter, then email me and I will get it for sure.
But we're going to be doing more Twitter.
We're trying to watch the Twitter better and catch those as they come through.
Yeah.
So I think Twitter just needs a better way for me to sort those notifications. So, all right. I think that's everything. Yes?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Time to start writing.